Hey everybody, Volen here. It's been a long time. I want to say it's been a year, but really it's closer to almost a year and a half since I've last made a video. And it's been about a year since I've also posted anything, pretty much, not just social media, but just anywhere on the web. So I've been disappearing before, but I really disappeared this time. And as usual, I'm really sorry, guys. This is never something I plan, but it's just something that almost becomes a necessity when I find out something that I didn't know before that makes me realize just how much more work there is to be done. And really, after a short moping period of just like, man, I can't believe I didn't see that. I can't believe that something so obvious that I can just clearly see now is the thing that I should have been most focused on, that I should have really started with, that I wish that I had built before I started doing anything else. I wish that that's how I did things. As soon as I get something like that, and after I'm done feeling sorry about not having done it, and there's just no other answer but either just giving it up or just getting after it. And really, at this point, I don't see a way to quit. That is not an option. So really, that's how come disappearing happens. It happens because I find out something that is incredibly important that I did not see before, that didn't realize I had to do, that I couldn't even see, which is the part about this whole studying by yourself thing that makes it so tricky. Before we get into any of that stuff though, I'll try and make the video into two parts. I'll talk you through some of the bigger things that I've realized that I really wish that I had done from the very start. I'll talk to you a little bit about how things that are right in front of you, you can't really see oftentimes, because if you're just not ready for it and you don't have a big enough view of what it is you're trying to do, you can't really judge the importance of individual pieces. And that's why mistakes happen very often, of overlearning something or underlearning something. So I'll talk you through some of these things that have been really big for me and what I've been doing in the last year, and why I had to really just pull back, get rid of absolutely everything but what's most important. And then I'll show you some work. It's not going to be anything amazing. Everything is pretty much a work in progress, but I'm getting better. And that's really all that I'm after with this whole entire process. To me, that's the main thing, is working on myself and having a practice, having something that keeps me coming back every single day, that always demands that I do better, that it's never good enough, but not in a crazy, desperate, it's never good enough type of way, but in a, hey man, we need to be more organized, we need to be more serious, we need to be more engaged, we need to do this thing better, which makes you better, in my opinion, as a person as well, having something to struggle through every day. So I'll give you a quick recap if you haven't seen one of my videos before, or you don't know who the hell I am, which is the same thing, or you've forgotten everything about me since I haven't posted in so long. In 2013, I decided that I'm going to try and teach myself about art. I had no idea what that means at the time, and looking back at it now, I definitely see that I have no idea what I'm doing. I actually thought that was going to be some guy carrying an easel around town and painting things or drawing stuff or whatever I was imagining at the time. I'd never done it as a kid. I had absolutely no skill foundation whatsoever. I didn't understand how things fit together. I had no idea how to make a picture. I'd never made any pictures apart from just taking photos, let's say. I didn't have any friends that had ever done that. I didn't have any artist friends. I didn't have anyone to ask things of. I was kind of left to figure it out by myself, which is how I'd done things pretty much forever, really. So it wasn't really a new thing, and it was the only option. There was just no way I could go. I didn't have any money to go to school or take lessons or any of that stuff. I'd just been to university, so I really didn't have any other option if I wanted to do this but to just teach myself. And also, really, the major reason why I was doing this thing is because I thought it was impossible when I first started. I had no idea whether I could learn or not. I'd never done anything before. I'd never built any skills. I didn't understand how any of this stuff works. I'd gone to school and I'd done okay at school. Then I'd been to uni. That's it. So I'd written essays and then done things like that. I'd basically done things that people asked me to do. They were asked of me, but I had no idea how that stuff translates into. I'd never built skills. I didn't know how that stuff is either related to anything or what you could use it for. None of that stuff. So I had no experience building skills, no idea if you needed talent or any of the other popular things that are said about anything. Like, is it possible to take something that you're extremely bad at and get good at it? That was basically the foundational question. And if it's possible and not impossible the way that I thought before, then what else is possible? So it's really questioning a lot of these things that I had grown up with and thought were true, and then seeing what else really, if I was wrong, what else was I wrong about? What can we do with all this stuff? So anyway, 2013, decided to teach myself about art. No experience, no idea what I'm doing. So since then, I've worked every single day. So since 2013, I've worked on this thing every day. I can promise you that much. Now, I've definitely have not been perfect in how I've worked on it, and I have a lot of room for improvement on organizing, on discipline, on understanding, on all of that stuff. But really, when you don't know what you're doing, you need to expect mistakes as part of the process. I mean, it's common sense if you just think about it, because if you have no one to tell you what's efficient and effective, then really all you're left with is testing a bunch of different hypotheses that may or may not be the thing that actually works. And you may not find out for quite a long time when you're doing things by yourself, because you have no feedback. The only feedback you have is from yourself, but that's limited to how much you understand what it is that you're doing. So things like aesthetics, being able to look at an image and appreciate what's good or what's bad, I had none of that. I was looking at what the pros were doing, like the top tier pros, and what they were sharing, and I was taking all their courses and I was doing all the tutorials. I thought I was doing all the right things. But the thing is that, again, when you lack the big picture, you really have no idea what you're missing. You're constantly acquiring things, but you're not really understanding what it is that you don't have. And if you're working with someone, if there's a master overseeing your work, then it's really easy for them to just see, hey, you're doing this, but really you should be going in this direction. And you're also missing all these things. And do you even know about this thing over here? Like, you get none of that when you're doing stuff on your own. And I've seen people push back on self-taught and what that means. And self-taught just means that I have no one to ask things of. I'm not part of a community. I don't go to a place where I can ask someone and get feedback. Yes, there is the internet, but yes, if you've also posted on the internet, I'm sure that you know that anyone else can also post on the internet. So getting reliable feedback that is tailored to what you want and is not just either someone's personal opinion or their emotional venting or any of that stuff, it's difficult to get feedback. That's why people pay for school, obviously. I mean, that's the deal. You go to someone who's trained to help you get trained. So self-taught to me doesn't mean to just be doing something in a dark room with no windows somewhere. No, I'm taking all the courses I can possibly go through. I'm studying everything that I can from everyone that's more experienced than me, which is almost anyone. I'm reading books, I'm doing all that stuff. But it still doesn't mean that you're understanding how these pieces fit together. And that was really my biggest problem in the last year, is just realizing that this has happened many times before, that I'm really doing things out of sequence, that I'm learning something that should be at point 17, let's say, but I'm doing it as number 1. And I'm really lacking a lot of the things that should have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I do 17, 33, 26, 45, 3, and then I realize when I get 3 that, oh dude, I need 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. And then from then on, I go 14, 29. And then I back up, okay, let's do 10, 11, 12. It's just you discover what's important and what sequence you need to learn things in as you go sometimes. Just because the way that I'm doing this is not efficient. It's not efficient to be self-taught. If you can go to a school, if you have a good school around you, if you have people who are doing work that are available to you, that you would like to do similar work to theirs, absolutely 1000% go for it. But if you don't have a choice and you're forced to do things in the same way that I'm doing things, then hopefully the channel, at least to some degree, helps you. If you see improvement in my work, then of course that's definitely something that you can also get in your work. So I'm trying to kind of rush through this whole thing because I'm not sure when I'm making another video. I'm not really sure what and how I'm going to handle social media for the moment. I'm going to just try and get you through, carry you through, you know, some of these things that I've learned, hopefully give you something of use, and also not take 2 hours to go through everything. So what I discovered, so 2017 September is when I made my last video. 2017 October is when I signed up for New Masters Academy, and I started looking at Steve Huston and Glenn Vilppu. I'd seen Glenn Vilppu before, and I really didn't understand what he was teaching. I couldn't understand the language behind some of the things that he says. For instance, there's this one thing that I first saw a lecture from him almost 10 years ago, before I was even interested in drawing or any of that stuff. There was just a guy drawing things, and I was just looking at him. And I remember he would say things like, feel the back. You know, like he would take his pencil and just draw a figure from imagination on a piece of paper. And he would just say, I'm feeling the back, I'm feeling the chest, I'm feeling the leg, the pull of the pelvis, this and that. And I was just sitting there looking at it like, dude, I can feel my own back. If I go to the gym, maybe I'd feel my back. I can feel my back right now. I don't know how you're feeling the back of something that doesn't exist on a piece of paper. I don't know what back you're feeling. I don't know. I don't understand. So I didn't get it. And for years after, I still didn't get it. And it really didn't click what he was doing and how he was doing it until I guess my own development was a bit further ahead. So seeing Steve Huston and seeing him paint was really what opened my eyes as to what painting really is, and how drawing and painting are essentially a fused skill. They're the same thing, or at least one is really dependent upon. They're fused. When you're painting, you're also drawing, and when you're drawing, you're kind of thinking through form, and which is going to be repeated again when you're painting later on. So they can be separated, but they also get fused into like this bigger skill. I didn't understand any of that stuff when I was first learning about concept art and designing and all that stuff. I was looking at what people were doing and their methods and techniques, and I wasn't really understanding what is the foundation of all that stuff. And I was just looking at essentially what you get from doing a certain thing. So with a drawing, you get line, and that was my thinking. You get line. And then I thought, well, what's the point of getting line when I can do 3D, and that would get me a surface and lighting and a 3D model that I can rotate and do all this stuff with. So I thought 3D was superior. I thought that photobashing was superior. I thought that there were quicker, better, more efficient ways. I didn't really understand the aesthetic between the difference between paintings and photography. I thought essentially, since there are matte paintings, right? Since that exists, I thought that was the end goal. If painters could paint photorealistically and quickly, why would they not photobash? Why would a matte painting not be the end goal pretty much of all art? I didn't really understand anything about how to design an image, how to think about edges, how to organize values, how to group things. I was just thinking more is better, detail is better. And I think that that's a pitfall that many beginning artists fall into. It's because it's seductive, right? You have all this detail and it's for free. Why would I not just grab a building? Why would I not just grab some trees or whatever the thing, or a figure? Why would I not just put that thing there? And really, it's not until I looked at a lot more art and I was really consciously questioning what it is that I need to be doing, what is better, you know, and what makes for a better image. And I was actually asking people, anytime I would get access to someone, I would be asking them, what makes for a good image? How can you distinguish between this and that? Or they would tell me that something I've done is bad. And I would ask them, you know, well, how come? Like, what would make it better? And they wouldn't necessarily be able to articulate and answer a lot of these things, because there's so many hundreds of subtle little things that are built one on top of the other that make for a good image, that it could have a dominant, let's say, shape design, or color might be the primary thing, but it still has many other things that need to work before the image can be unified and good. And you can point to something and say that it is good because of this, but it also needs all the these are very complicated questions when you're trying to break things down and figure out what is it that's common about all images, what is it that's common about all of these different things. Because if I can find the underlying framework, then I can make my own images better. But if everything is haphazard, if photography goes and photobashing goes and painting goes and stylized drawing goes and if all of this stuff is there, and if there's abstract painting and realistic painting, and it's all good in some way, then how am I supposed to make sense of that? Then what is good, what is bad? You need to at least be able to make sense of these very basic things before you can start logically building up from there, so you can make better work and avoid making worse work. So seeing Steve Huston paint really opened my eyes as to what painting is. I could see someone create something that I thought is supposed to take a pretty long period of time. I thought that drawing is just essentially looking at something and you're measuring and you're 2D flat drawing. That was kind of my thinking about it, that your goal is to just get this thing, and so you can just fill in the shapes with painting, and that's it. It was a very unrefined way of thinking about what drawing and painting were. I just couldn't appreciate them better. I didn't know any better. So when I saw someone who was able to do something that I didn't know was possible, that I didn't know could be done, and just his method of doing stuff really made me appreciate what the truth of drawing is, what it's actually for, and how it's way better. It's way better than what I thought it is. Because when I just was thinking of copying things and lines, that was just mechanical, boring work. That was just busy work. And how is 3D not better than that? But when I actually understood that drawing is, in a lot of ways, the study of form, it's the understanding of the object that you're drawing, it's analysis, it's really understanding and appreciating life in a way. You're looking at something and you're paying attention to it, very close attention to how it was formed, to what it looks like exactly, to how it sits in a certain location. You have all of these things that you need to think of. It becomes a very complicated, I can definitely understand why people appreciate drawings now. I couldn't before. But now that I understand drawing better, I appreciate it way more. I never used to look at drawings. I used to think that they're just kind of unfinished work, or just, anyway, I didn't get it. I get it now. I love it. And painting also. Just seeing him paint a head in like 5 minutes or so, when I thought that it should take hours or days, or, that old masters were just sitting there for days and weeks and months just rendering a small piece of something, foliage, every little leaf and all that stuff. I thought that's how it was done, and I was wrong. And I'm very happy that I was wrong, because it's way better the way that I currently understand it. Because drawing gives me the ability now to actually take time and study something carefully, understand it and appreciate it, and then take that and be able to apply it later on, and also look at it from an aesthetic point of view and spend time with it. Look at the shapes, look at the design, look at how they fit together. And then painting is now the study of light, the study of materials, things that I relied on 3D to do for me, that it was actually doing poorly or not as good as it could be done. And now it's another opportunity for me to sit, to look at something, to appreciate it, to understand why it works, how it works, to look at light, to look at materials and properties, and just study more of life, which to me, art has always been the appreciation of what life is like. But in terms of technique, I really didn't know how to fuse these together. I didn't know how it works in that sense. I thought that the final image, the product, kind of just says what you would want it to say. But to me, even better than that, the process itself is something that can reflect that. I do realize this stuff may sound a bit abstract at the moment, but there's just no better way for me to explain it in 20, hopefully 30 minutes max for the video as we're going along. So made last video 2017 September, signed up October 2017, New Masters Academy, started understanding more about drawing, more about painting, more about how images are put together, it really made me realize that the ability to draw and paint, if you're wanting to do concept art, if you're wanting to do illustration, if you're using 3D as a base, whatever tricks or any of that stuff or techniques you may be using from any of the top guys and girls that you may have seen, if you are doing their same technique, you need, in my opinion, to have solid drawing and painting skills under your belt, because otherwise you just cannot modify anything. A renderer will just give you something, but if you don't have a well enough developed aesthetic sense to appreciate, and that normally would come from painting, if you don't have the eye to appreciate, let's say, the lighting, the materials, what could be better, what could be subdued over here, how can we design the image better, so drawing would allow you, let's say, to modify certain things that maybe you want to add. So if you want to put something in, if you want to take something out, if you want to just literally, drawing to me right now is essentially the ability to manipulate 3D space on a 2D surface. That's how it is. It's just navigating 3D space. It's being able to understand how close, how far, etc., where something sits in space exactly. Apart from all the other things I already talked about, it's also that. It just serves so many different things. And painting and observation would allow you to look at materials, to look at color, to look at all of these different things, to look at light, and really be able to critically look at something and see if it's been lit by the same light sources, if it matches, which way it's facing, what light would it be getting if it's, let's say, an outdoor scene. Anyway, so what I've been doing since that time is I immediately realized I need to get started on drawing, that I need to draw a lot. So on Instagram, I started this thing, 10,000 drawings, and I started drawing. I can't really show you much of this stuff, so I've saved only some. So I have about 1,500 to 2,000 drawings in this folder here, and you can see the very beginnings are nothing impressive, pretty poor, pretty just stiff, uncoordinated, poorly done drawings, and then another 4,000 over here. So I was just drawing every day, all the time, as much as I possibly could. Just more of the same. Again, nothing impressive, just drawing, just volume. And then did mostly figure for thousands and thousands of drawings. And then I guess at some point here I've also done some other things, but just drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing. And I stopped at about 6,000 because I realized at that time that I need to start doing some more careful drawings to take longer time and not have any pressure or stimulus to like try and get through a drawing quicker. Because when I'm numbering drawings and the goal is 10,000, then I didn't want to have any sort of pressure to stop a drawing earlier. I wanted to take one drawing and it would be the same amount of time as 100 drawings would be otherwise. So I discontinued counting and I moved on to just drawing more, but this time with better analysis. I also did another pass on anatomy. I'd studied anatomy years before, but now when I also had a little bit of drawing, I could appreciate why it's necessary and that I couldn't just photobash it in if I didn't understand how to connect things properly. And I also needed a better understanding of how things connect each other, how they go together. So I'm kind of just showing you these in a pretty poor way right now, but when I start showing you some drawings, you get to see them more detailed. I just wanted you to see the volume. And I remember one comment from one of you guys said that they discovered newsprint and it like saved their life because of drawings didn't have to be precious anymore. This is all just training to me. It literally is just training. I don't need to save anything. Nothing's precious because the highest possible value for me is just, it's learning. It's doing something and improving at it, learning about how to build skills, learning about how to change my brain, how to transform myself, how to do something I couldn't do and work at it in a organized, disciplined way in order to develop it and to then connect it to other things and try and do it more strategically. So I stop having to disappear and be inconsistent with other things that I'm doing because something just needs to be prioritized because it's now critical. So I guess let's show you some work and I'll keep trying to go over some of these things. Video is getting long. I'm sorry. I do hope that it's useful though. And I guess anyone that isn't interested could just stop watching whenever they wanted to. So let's move on then and show you some work. All right, so let's get into some work. I've prepared a timeline for you guys. So we're going from top to bottom, top being worse, where we start from, bottom, hopefully getting better. And I also just want to scroll you through some of the folders that I've been doing with things that I've saved. Now, before we get started, I just want to make a quick distinction between making a finished piece, making an image, and practice. Now, I've talked about this before, but I think it's crucial for the context of what I'm going to show you, because most of the things that I'll be showing you are practice. Essentially 90% of everything that I've been doing in the last year and a half has been practicing different things, studying different things. And 10%, the rest of the time, I would have been taking what I'm learning and trying to put it into a piece. Basically, pieces to me are kind of like testing. They're the game. They're after you've put in your practice on the court or in the weight room. Then you take those skills that you've been developing and you take them out in the field, in the game, and you see how you play. You try and integrate all of these different things. It's important to me that you do both. If you practice only, then you really don't get to find out what you suck at. You don't get to integrate all of these various skills. You don't get to see what's firing correctly and what isn't really making sense yet. But if you're only doing pieces, then you're never allowing yourself that space to not have to rush through something and be wondering about how to design something or thinking about a story. You need to actually let that stuff go so you can focus on, hey, am I actually portraying this correctly in order for it to be able to tell the story that I want to tell? A lot of times people will get stuck in details. I mean, that's one of the pitfalls of beginner artwork, is that we'll get right into detail and we won't really think about the bigger forms or how that sits in perspective or any of those things that are actually bigger issues. We'll just get right into the detail because it's either so overwhelming or so exciting to get started right onto that stuff. It's no surprise that the process of learning kind of has that same tendency for people. They will just see a whole bunch of things that we don't know and we'll jump right into them, and then we're trying to get this and that, and that's been my mistake. I want to do 3D and CAD and model and render and do all this stuff, but also paint and photobash, and I want to do tech, but I also want to do environment, I want to do characters, and I want to do it in this style, but also this is cool. So you're looking at all these details and you're not really seeing the bigger picture of, hey man, I just need to get the bigger issues correct. I need to get the drawing done. I need to get the values working. I need to design the image. I need to see what works best. And then you worry about the detail. So really what I want to do here is I want to give you a bigger framework and also then introduce to you the detail of the different pieces. So mostly what I'll be showing you is practice. And then I also have a couple pieces that I will show you guys that, to be honest, it all feels kind of cringy, but I really have no reason to hide anything because that's what improvement feels like. I'm in kind of an in-between stage right now where I'm kind of getting some things, but I'm really not getting a lot of other things, and I'm still trying to figure things out. So a lot of the stuff feels unfinished and I just don't know how to finish it any better. So I'm just going to show it to you as it is. And I'm sure you feel that way about some of your own stuff. That's how I feel about my stuff. So there's no reason to hide it. So let's get started. This is kind of the brief overview of the whole process of the last year and a half. So if I were to just give you the quick version, it would be, we start here with some of the first line drawings that I did, some of the first figure drawings. So I never really before understood the reason for figure drawing because, well, there's DAZ 3D and there's models that you could just literally cut and paste. So a lot of concept artists would just do that, and some would even have it as a point of pride that they just found something that fits perfectly. So I'm studying how they do stuff and I'm taking their approach as the better approach because I don't know anything. But then when I learned a bit more, I realized that, hey man, I actually need to develop these skills because in order for me to modify anything, I need to understand how it works. So I had to start doing a lot of figure drawing, and so I couldn't draw at all. Not only did I not know anatomy and figure drawing, I just couldn't draw. So I used figure drawing as a challenge, basically, to teach myself to draw. So not only am I learning about the figure, I'm also learning about how to draw. So there's different skills. The more that you can break down what you don't know exactly, the easier it is to separate these things and train them individually and then put them back together. Like I said, you have practice and then you have a piece that you would practice all this stuff on. So first, figure drawings, pretty terrible. Proportion issues, definitely, on almost all of them. But still, this is one of the first times that I was actually starting to think about volume. This came from Steve Huston and his teaching at New Masters Academy. I started trying to think of these things as volumes and not just blindly copy two-dimensional lines. So a lot of volume, trying to get some gesture here and there. You can see when it gets a bit more complicated, I make more proportional mistakes. You can see this torso is kind of elongated and broken. So this is the beginning stage, and I'll show you more, but then we move on. Like I said, this is the compressed version. So this is beginning. This is closer to now. So from nothing to about here. And not only could I not draw stuff, I also really didn't understand how to shade things when I moved to a different medium. So when I would, let's say, try and do stuff in pencil, everything would completely break down because I wasn't understanding what I was supposed to be doing. So it sounds weird saying it now, but I just had so many things that I had to get through my brain. So a year and a half, almost a year and a half, so a year and a couple months, spent primarily on drawing, on painting. This is one of the ones that roughly about a year from this moment. So both of these are roughly about a year. This might be about, yeah, this is about a year. This is a little bit less than a year. So from here to here to here. And of course, since this is the condensed version, this is the in-between of all of those drawings. This is, if you haven't seen the previous part of the video, this is another 6,000 drawings roughly over here, and a whole bunch of drawings in between those 6,000 and these. And then stopped after here with the drawing and the painting, took a little break, and then learned some CAD. So I wanted to do some tech stuff as well. So learned a bit more about modeling, a little bit about CAD modeling with Moi 3D, and then Octane, so some rendering as well on top of that. And this is kind of putting things together. This was started like 6 months before it was finished. And like I said, it doesn't really feel finished, but I think it's just time to drop some of these older things and move on and start making new stuff. But this is everything coming together. So when I said that I realized the benefit of drawing and of painting and of all that stuff, I'm not saying that everything else that I did was a waste. I'm not saying that the 3D was a waste or that all that stuff was worthless. I'm saying that to be able to utilize those tools correctly, you really need to have the base, the foundation of drawing and painting, because they're essentially the ability to manipulate an image most directly. 3D would require you to go in and click on points and move things and click checkboxes and render and re-render and do that stuff until your brain is fried. But with painting or drawing, you can literally just go in there, and if you know what you're doing, you can just fix your problem in 1/10 of the time that it may take to do it in 3D, if you know what you're doing. And to also push the render that 3D would give you into either more realistic or whatever style you would like to put it into. So it's a lot of it comes with the aesthetic development that's required to make some more better critical decisions. Okay, so let's go through some of this stuff and show you a bit more. So this is more of those first drawings. So like I said, these are months and months apart. Anytime that you see any type of improvement, it's really been months. So you can see I've actually numbered these. So these are the first ones. This is just drawing before I even started the 10,000 drawing thing. So just some drawings, and then probably a couple hundred drawings later, and then a couple thousand drawings later. So still some proportional issues. I think this is a pretty crucial point to make, is that I think I've also probably been studying some anatomy in between those two. So it's not just drawing. It's not just about grinding. It's not about doing the same thing over and over. You really need to know what you're aiming for. You need to stop and really plan and think a lot about what it is that you're trying to do, and then start grinding more on it. Because if you're just doing the same thing over and over, you will not necessarily be improving. You might actually be training mistakes. So it's really important, if you're teaching yourself, to pull back periodically and really see how you're going and where you're headed. So 2,600 drawings in, and still proportion mistakes, but I guess some things are working better, but still needs a lot of work. Almost 3,000 in, so a bit of structure. So I think at these first ones, I don't think I was even capable of. I didn't even. So the thing about all this stuff that I've been doing is I didn't even know what I was supposed to do. So as I was moving through thousands of these, I'm also watching lectures, I'm reading books, I'm doing all that stuff. I'm looking at artwork constantly. So I'm looking at other people's stuff, I'm looking at my stuff, I'm trying to figure out what it is that I don't have. And like I said before, drawing and painting right now, they don't mean the same things to me anymore as they did before. They come with so much more meaning that there's so many more things that come with the concept of drawing, that it now means that I need to know about a certain thing, that I need to study structure, that I need to study anatomy, that I need to improve on my perspective. It comes with all of these things. Whereas before, if I said drawing, I would just mean that there's something there and I need to translate it on my page over here. And it completely did not mean that anymore. And by this stage, I'm also incorporating, I'm looking for structure, things that, so if I'm drawing this from a photograph, there's certain things in each drawing that you can kind of look at it and see what the person was thinking. So with these, I'm not really thinking of detail. I'm thinking of the bigger masses of the I'm thinking volume. But with these, I'm actually thinking of structure, because let's say I could have omitted a lot of these things and it still would have read as a head, but it wouldn't have read as a structured head. So, okay, a couple months down the line, introducing some value. And like I said, when I was trying to think of, let's say, a pencil shading or something like that, it completely fell apart because I wasn't understanding what the shading was supposed to communicate, as weird as that might seem. When I was trying to do stuff in pencil, like cross-hatching, it wouldn't really translate into just thinking about light. I would be thinking abstractly in a weird type of way. I wouldn't just be thinking that it's a form that's been hit by light and that's what I'm describing. I wasn't really sure what I was supposed to describe, which is what was leading to a lot of the poorer drawings. So you can see these are probably a few thousand more apart. So these are starting to look a bit better. And I'm also coupling the drawing now with some painting. So since I started doing some of the value renderings, I've also started doing some painting, because like I mentioned in the first part of the video, painting really gets really intertwined with drawing. Now, one thing about if you're studying light, make sure to not only, I can pretty clearly see that this is, I mean, if I didn't have the reference here, I would probably be able to tell that this is painted from a photograph rather than live, because of how I've pushed the highlights. You really need to make sure that if you're studying light and if you're studying to be a better painter, you have to not only paint from photographs, but you really need to go outside. You need to set up your own little material setup at home and just turn on the light. It's not really very difficult. Dave Raposa said that he pretty much learned most of what he knows about light by just turning on a desk lamp and looking at stuff underneath it. And I've done that many times. I need to do it many more. More painting, trying to get a bit more complex now with just more color variety. I think by this point, maybe Craig Mullins' course came out on schoolism, and that thing was also pivotal in what I understood about drawing and about painting, and that was incredibly helpful. So yeah, just understanding more. So starting just with line, not really knowing what I'm doing, building some volume, then putting some shading on that volume, then refining the shading and the drawing, essentially. So being able to navigate 3D space better. I've actually, I think, punched this guy's mouth in a little bit, or I have a bit of trouble with mouths. So okay, just studies from movies and things, and I can kind of tell that this is from a movie and this is from a movie as well. So you can kind of tell by the lighting, the values or the lighting. So when people sometimes say values, essentially what they mean is light. Because I used to get the critique, let's say that my values are this or my values are that, and I'm like, dude, I'm copying exactly what's in the reference. How could my values be off? But what they mean by that is that the lighting structure of the image is a certain way. So you can see this is pretty compressed. If this was actually real life, there would probably be more light bouncing around. There'd be lighter values. There'd be a lot more light. It's just that this is why you need to go out and also just look at things. This is one of the things that I didn't understand when people would tell me that I need to study from light. I wouldn't understand the difference. I wouldn't understand why. Study from Craig Mullins. Now, this is something that used to really confuse me and still does. This is kind of what I'm working on at the moment, is striking a balance between abstract and real. And something that really messed me up with painting is trying to understand what it is that I'm supposed to do. Because this is an amazing painting, but you can also find paintings that are really tight that are also amazing paintings. So I really didn't know what I'm supposed to do. Am I supposed to do all this crazy brushy stuff? And am I supposed to put texture in things? So I remember doing this study. I remember the day, and I remember feeling like, okay, I'm kind of getting the gesture. I'm getting like the drawing part. I was feeling happy about how it was going, but looking at it now, I can kind of see that I really didn't understand, and still don't. I don't understand edges well enough. So I didn't understand just the basic vocabulary of image making well enough to be able to play with it. Essentially, playing comes when you're able to just have the basics so well ingrained and so well trained, which is why practice is so important, that you've trained these things into your brain so much that you're able to just do things and not really have to think about it, and free up your brain to concentrate on things like stylizing on. So if I'm worried about the drawing and how the perspective would be, and which the perspective is off on this thing, if I'm thinking about 17 different things, I can't also think about how to make a better image. But if my perspective is well trained, if my shape recognition, if my proportions, if I've trained to look at shapes and differentiate when one shape is longer, shorter, smaller, when something works design wise and when it doesn't. If I've trained myself to do all these things, then it's much easier then to go into a painting and not have to think about all of those things constantly, but just think about, what am I supposed to do? What's this image about? What do I want it to say? So a bit tighter. So like I said, up to here, I just primarily did drawing and painting. Then I took about 2 months, I think, to do a little bit of 3D just for a break. I wanted to do some of that stuff, and I also wanted to study some design language and different things like that. This is, by the way, from Vitaly Bulgarov. He made a course on ArtStation, Masterclass 20, what was it, 2018? Masterclass 20, the first Masterclass they released. So this is following his course. It was really good. Very, very good, not just for software and things, but also for learning about design. He has a great design sense, great shapes. So it was very good to look at that. So basically this is up to about almost a year since I've started just withdrawing and painting. And then just some more, like I said before, I stopped trying to do things quickly and I started doing things over a period of a couple of days. And you can see I'm still trying to find a balance between texture and abstractiness versus more refined. And I'm trying to also think constantly about position of light and how things would look and what colors would be there, and trying to make things not necessarily as a copy. So not trying to copy things directly, but trying to change small things here and there. So more studies, more elaborate. So this guy, I would not have been able to paint at this stage when I was over here somewhere. So even though I could paint and draw to some degree while I was over there, I really would not have been able to do this guy. Okay, there was an image that was missing here that I knew I didn't get to. And this is the difference between practice and project. So this is essentially a project, and this fits right about here. So at the very beginning. So I was just talking to you guys about how I stopped doing things quickly and tried to spend more time on things. So just because most of the stuff looked completely horrendous and just in line and volume, that doesn't mean that this is like the best that I could do at the moment. And I'm saying that because if your work looks something like this or similar to that, then if you spend more time on something, you could definitely push that thing more. So like, just because your practice looks horrible, that doesn't mean that your projects are at that same level. Your practice of something may be at the very beginning, right? So like for me, figure drawing I was at the very beginning, but I had a base of different skills that I'd been building for years before that. So I could still pull something off and not have it be completely awful. But obviously, the more weaknesses that I can eliminate, the more that I can boost the quality of everything else that I do. But one thing that I just am making a distinction here is that a lot of times people will just stop prematurely. Like they'll stop a piece in about 5 or 10% development and kind of look at it and be like, well, that sucks. Like I don't ever want to do that. That's terrible. Like I suck. I don't know. I've been doing this for years and I'm just not getting any better. Look at this thing. It's horrible. And really the solution to that could be as easy as, dude, you just have not spent enough time on this thing as you need to be spending on it for you to be able to refine it. So that's a common thing that may happen. So at this same level of horrid drawing, if you just spent enough time on something, you could still refine it. So probably if I only posted this and said, this is what I'm working on, you probably wouldn't think that this is also possible at that same level. And I'm really saying that not because this is great. I'm saying that because this is something I did for years. I just did not spend enough time on images. I really could have spent about double, triple, quadruple the time that I was spending on things. I just didn't know that I should spend that much time on stuff. And that comes from a lot of videos and courses are geared towards doing things quickly, and people will speed things up, and you kind of, in my opinion at least, get the illusion that you're supposed to do everything at full speed constantly, and if it's not done within a session or a day, then okay, well, time to do the next thing. So it just stays like that. So I was doing this study as I was doing those other figures, and this is the difference, right? This is where you get to put all your things in practice. Like, can I get the gestures, can I get the proportions, can I get all this stuff, and then can I repeat it? So not just for one figure, can I do it for another, can I do it for another? And when I'm looking at it now, there's a lot of things that, I mean, edges are, like I said, these are things that I just did not have at the time. So I would treat edges differently. There's definitely a lot of color issues and values that are not sitting where they should be sitting. So these are things that I can see now that I just could not see then. But does that mean that it's a failure? No, because I learned a lot of stuff just by doing this thing. And I would just go over it now and fix a few things and nudge some stuff around, and I can improve it. So it doesn't really matter if you're churning out bad work as long as you keep working, because there is really no way to get better apart from just a ton of work. And I guess I'll just run you through the folders really quickly of just a couple, just try and show you some of the volume of work. So you saw the 6,000 drawings that are, and this isn't everything. So this isn't even everything that has been done. It's just some of the stuff that has been saved, but it's just hundreds and hundreds of different things. And hopefully as you're looking at these, maybe you get some ideas for your own practice, or just get an idea of just how many different things. I'm not doing the same thing over and over. You can see there's some value studies in just like 2 or 3 different values. And this comes from Nathan Fox and also from Craig Mullins, both courses at Schoolism, instructors there. So really great resources that helped me a lot. So here's some 3D rendering and things like that. So basically we're going from beginning of the year to more towards the end. You can see I was doing some deconstruction. So this is a Feng Zhu design, and I would just be making these grids, and just I would have different things that I'm practicing. So this is one of the things I was doing, object deconstruction. I was trying to get a form and just get used to more dynamic camera angles, get used to foreshortening, get used to really building stuff in perspective rather than just doing it in 3D. So this is 2018. So painting, drawing, value studies, trying some color, trying different things, pushing certain things, painting stuff from photos, I remember this one, just trying to suggest materials and not do things belaboredly, like not spend too much time into changing small things. I think that's one of the really big things that helps me a lot, is just don't try and do too many things. Like literally just go into an image and just change a couple things. Like, can I render the highlights but not copy them exactly? Can I maybe change the camera a little bit? Can I add a building? Can I do whatever? Can I just small little things so that you don't overwhelm or break your practice, but still have something new that you're trying to introduce. It's 2018, 2019. Let's wrap up. So let's do a couple pieces. Let's show you some of the work, and then that'll be it. So it's just it's daily basically. So it's constant, but that's what I'm after. So none of these are finished. They're just longer studies. So this is from a photo by Jingna Zhang. No idea how to say that, but she had a course on Learn Squared I took a couple years ago. Great photography. So just trying to tighten things up, trying to not render like a photograph, so not trying to copy it exactly, but trying to introduce just small changes, like I said, and just not trying to do every little hair and thing like that, everything. Here's another one. This one is a cringy one because I'm not really sure how to finish it or what to do with it. This is done from a movie frame, and I think you can kind of tell because the lighting's pretty flat, but not really sure how to finish it. This is something that I did years ago, and it was pretty flat. I think I can actually have the before over here. So this is what the lighting was then, and I thought that it had a lot of. I was wanting to do a direct light source kind of, but I just really didn't understand how. So part of that same practice over the last year and a half has been to just understand light more. This one you already saw. So this one was also started about 6 months ago, and then I kind of pushed it as I learned a few more things. This one is a cringy one. I'm not really sure how to finish it. And this one was also started years ago. Not years ago. Yeah, about a year and a half ago. So started a while ago, but I'm still not sure how to resolve certain things. And I think I'm showing them to you so I can just drop them and move on. Here's another one. This was started 2017, I think. And didn't really have, there was the moon in there, but it really didn't have direct light or any of that stuff. And it was also pretty monotonous. It didn't have too many things. So all of these are pretty cringy for me. None of them are really resolved in any way. This is something that's, I guess, a couple months old as well. Just wanted to practice some of the drawing and some of the painting, and also put it in kind of a little story of an image. This is after battle. And then this is that CAD in 3D that I was telling, that's that same robot, just rendered in a different pose and with a bit more of a story. Here's that same guy over here. And like he's completely 3D, so it's got a couple different poses on him, different light, all of that stuff. And I think that's everything. That is really everything, because this video has been, well, like almost, well, not 2 hours. It's been about an hour and some. So that really is everything. Nothing else has happened since this video because it's just so long. And if anyone managed to stick it out, thank you very much. I'm sorry again for not being around, but it's just so much work and so many things that I constantly discovered that I suck at, that I didn't even know were things that I need to work on. And I do like doing YouTube. I like to think that I can somehow help people that are starting, at least at some point, but I'm also trying not to speak when I really shouldn't be talking. I'm not just trying to be another guy that's talking about stuff, because YouTube, for me at least, went from a place that you could go and you could see, you could see some people that were doing things that were impressive and cool, and you want to do like that. But now it's filled with all kinds of stuff. There's people that are doing things. There's people that are trying to do things. There's people that are failing at things. And I really don't want to be someone that's on here talking all the time, because social media does encourage that you talk all the time. But at the same time, either not being able to produce anything or not having anything of value to share, and just doing it for the sake of talking, I feel is a waste of your time, which is way worse. And also, if I steer someone in the wrong direction, that's probably the last thing that I would ever want to do. So that's why sometimes when I don't feel like I should be talking, I literally just pull myself away and I just don't say anything. I just get to work, and if I can do it, and if there's anything, then the work I produce will kind of do the speaking for me, if there's anything worth talking about. Because the thing is, a lot of times I don't even see the flaws that I have. So I might be talking about something thinking that I figured it out, that I got it, but the truth is that I can't even see my work for what it is, because I just don't have enough education, enough of a critical eye, enough understanding to be able to judge it. So I might be saying the wrong things, but I might be doing the wrong thing. Or I might be doing, it's just very complicated. When it comes to doing this stuff, I mean, it's making pictures, right? It's just making pictures. It's not a big deal. But to make something that's not a very big deal takes a long time, at least in my experience, which is why I understand now why people appreciate the things that other people make. I really did not have that appreciation 6 years ago when I started. I would look at a drawing and not really care. I would look at something and I wouldn't really care. But now that I know how much work goes into everything, I am way more appreciative of anything that anyone makes, because it's difficult. It's hard. If you told me that it would take me 6 years to be, let's say, higher level beginner, or, intermediate beginner-ish, if you had told me that, I would told you you're crazy. I thought when I started that within about 2 or 3 years, I will be at the very top of whatever it is that I didn't even know what the top was at the time, because I didn't even know what I was climbing. So at that time, complete misunderstanding of anything that this entails, of a consistent daily work on something and trying to push it forward each and every day. So for people that are starting out, that are really not sure how long something's supposed to take, or am I taking too long, or am I spending too much time on this piece, I would probably say that whatever your estimate is for the work, just double that or triple it. I think that's pretty much a rule, not just for art, that's for how long a business would take to develop, or just how long a job would take. I remember when I was a kid and I was working construction, someone would call me over and just say like, can you come for 30 minutes? And I knew that my day was just gone. I knew that that was the job I might be doing for the next 3 days, basically. So I remember ever since I was a kid, I used to think of that as construction time. Like someone calls you over and 30 minutes is like a time capsule. It's like I'll be there for the rest of the year now. So any project essentially takes way longer than you think it would take, especially if you don't know what you're doing. Don't sweat it. If you're still at a level that you don't think you should be at and you've been at it for X amount of time, you need to keep looking. You don't just need to grind. You need to be disciplined and you need to be consistent. You do need to work every day, but you don't necessarily just go and stick your head in the same hole that you've been sticking it into every single day and expect something different to happen. You need to pull your head out, look around and see like, okay, what have I done so far? What have I not looked into? Have I tried this? Have I looked for a mentor? Have I emailed someone? Have I read a book? Have I looked at Gumroads? Have I looked at different courses? But maybe have I also looked at like a school or a teacher that's around here that might teach me something? Have I signed up for something, Try different things. If it's not working, try different things. If it is working, then keep on doing it. But also be open to, you need to have some sort of way to get feedback for your work. You need to journal. You need to constantly be looking for things and expanding your framework, and not just, I think you guys kind of get it so far. So it's been a long time since I've made a video. It's been a pretty long video as well. Thank you very much if you guys stuck it out. Do let me know if you did. Let me know if something helped you. Let me know what could help you in the future. So I'm not really sure what the plans are for social media or any of that stuff at the moment, because I really need to work more on what I'm doing. I'm nowhere close to where, not to where I need to be, because there is no such place, not to where I want to be, because I don't really know what that is, but I just need to get a lot more work done. I need to practice a lot more things that I'm looking forward to learning, to being able to do, and hopefully to being able to then take that and help people who are starting out, who are struggling, who are wondering how to approach this stuff. I'm hoping that at some point I'll be able to have good advice on people who are starting out, because a lot of people say that when they started there was nothing and that's why it was really difficult. Well, now there's a whole bunch of stuff, but that makes it in a way even harder, because now you have all this noise about what should I listen to. There's so many different things that you could try. There are different approaches or contradicting approach, and everyone is saying everything, right? Any viewpoint that you find, there'll be 15 absolute contraries to that do work, and different tactics and different ways of doing things. But what are the crucial things that would transcend, that would translate into any medium? How to do that? What are just the basic skills, basic fundamentals? And those things are very hard to distill, because they're principles and they're not just a technique that you can demo in an image quickly. Those are things that you really need to sit down and dig deep and try and find them and do a lot of research, do a lot of, I think we should probably stop here. Thank you very much for your support all of these years. Thank you very much for your patience with me. Thank you for still sending me comments. Thank you for your messages. Thank you for the emails. I've replied to all of those. But I guess final thing is, when I disappeared, I basically signed out of all social media. So I just removed all the apps. I signed out of everything, and I removed all email notifications. So I haven't received a single social media anything. It was actually one of you guys. Shout out to my man Emil, who told me that apparently someone had said I was dead somewhere. So to the troll that posted that, fair play for some good trolling, but not yet, bro. I'm enjoying this stuff too much to be dying right now. I'm busy. I got stuff that I like that I'm doing. So until next time, guys, thank you for everything. Keep on working, keep on getting better. Anyone can get better.